So, picture this. It's the spring of 1972, and South Vietnam is on the absolute brink of being wiped off the map. An army that seems unstoppable is just steamrolling its way south. And when everything looks lost, one man gets the call to try and reverse a total, catastrophic defeat. This is the story of the man they called the savior of Quang Tri.
Okay, so by 72, most of the American combat troops, they're already home. This whole policy of Vietnamization, leaving the fight to the South Vietnamese, it's about to face its biggest, most brutal test. The North Vietnamese army sees this as their golden opportunity. They're planning a knockout blow, aiming right for the country's most vulnerable spot, its northern provinces. If they pull this off, South Vietnam gets sliced in half. Game over.
And it all kicks off on March 30th. It becomes known as the Easter Offensive, and this is not your typical hit-and-run guerrilla attack. No way. We're talking multiple North Vietnamese divisions storming across the demilitarized zone. This was a full-scale conventional invasion with one goal: cut the country in two. I mean, just look at the sheer scale of this thing. It's staggering. You've got over 120,000 troops, 1,200 tanks. This is a modern, mechanized army, and it just slams into the South Vietnamese defenses with absolutely overwhelming force.
And the guys on the other side, they were caught completely off guard. The ARVN's 3rd Division, the unit tasked with holding that line, it was just shattered. Fire bases started falling one after another, and soldiers began to retreat in total disarray. The entire northern front was just collapsing.
Then, on May 1st, Quảng Trị City falls. This was a strategic disaster, for sure, but it was also a huge psychological blow. It was the first provincial capital to be captured, and that sent this shockwave of panic all across the south. It really seemed like nothing could stop the advance. The road to the ancient capital of Hue was now wide open.
I mean, the situation was beyond desperate. Panic was everywhere. South Vietnam's President Thieu, he didn't just need a good general, he needed a miracle worker. He needed someone who could stare into the face of total, absolute defeat and somehow turn it all around.
And the man he called, his name was General Go Quang Trung.
Now you gotta understand, Trung wasn't just another general. His reputation, especially among his American counterparts, was legendary. General Bruce Palmer, one of the top U.S. commanders, didn't mince words. He called him, straight up, probably the best field commander in South Vietnam.
And the praise didn't stop there. General Creighton Abrams, the guy in charge of all U.S. forces in Vietnam at the time, paid him what might be the ultimate compliment you could give a foreign officer. He said Trung was so good, he was capable of commanding an American division.
It was just universal. Even a young Norman Schwarzkopf, the guy who would later lead coalition forces in the Gulf War, was completely in awe of him. He called him the most brilliant tactical commander I'd ever known. So yeah, this was the guy President Thieu was calling to fix a completely impossible situation.
So how in the world does one man step into a situation like that, a totally collapsing front, and turn the tide?
Well, on May 3rd, just 2 days after Quang Tri fell, Trung arrives to take command, and the effect of his mere presence, it was described as electric. Just his reputation alone gave immediate hope to soldiers who had absolutely none left.
And he did not waste a single second. First, he restored discipline with an iron fist. Get back to your post in 24 hours or you'll be shot. Simple as that. Then he's on TV, restoring morale, vowing to hold the city of Hue no matter what. He stabilizes the lines, starts rebuilding his shattered units, and then he immediately begins planning to do the unthinkable, to go back on the attack and retake what they had just lost.
And this set the stage for one of the most brutal, most bloody battles of the entire war, the fight to recapture the ancient citadel of Quang Tri.
The counteroffensive kicks off on June 28th, and for the next 2.5 months, South Vietnamese Marines and paratroopers, backed by a massive amount of U.S. air and naval power, fought for every single bloody inch of that city. It was just a brutal, grinding battle of attrition. It lasted 81 straight days.
To give you an idea of the intensity, just look at this number. Almost 330,000 metric tons of ordnance was dropped. The city was completely, utterly pulverized. Locals actually started calling the citadel a spiritual land because they believed every single inch of ground was soaked in the blood and held the bones of soldiers from both sides.
But in the end,
They did it. Trong's incredible leadership and planning, combined with the raw courage of his troops and just overwhelming American firepower, had turned an absolute catastrophe into one of South Vietnam's greatest victories of the entire war.
Now you'd think a victory like that would have sealed Trong's place as his nation's ultimate hero, right? But the war, well, it wasn't over, and his story takes a final, tragic turn.
Okay, fast forward to 1975. The North Vietnamese launched their final all-out offensive. Trong, still in command, is ready to make a stand at Hue. But then he starts getting these disastrous yo-yo orders from President Teo back in Saigon. First, it's hold the city to the death. Then, just a bit later, no, abandon it. Then, as this chaotic retreat begins, the order changes again, hold it at all costs. This insane, indecisive leadership from the top was fatal. The defensive lines just disintegrated, and Trung's entire command fell apart.
So the brilliant general who literally saved his country in 1972 was forced to watch it all collapse in 1975. He managed to escape to the United States, and here he lived a quiet, humble life. The man once called the most brilliant tactical commander alive spent his final working years as a computer analyst for a railroad association. I mean, you just can't imagine a starker contrast to his past life.
General Palmer, the same American who called him the best, offered this simple, really heartbreaking summary. He deserved a better fate. Trung's story is just this powerful reminder that a brilliant commander can be undone not by the enemy in front of him, but by the chaos behind him. In war, courage and genius on the battlefield, they aren't always enough.